Hello everyone and welcome back to another Unreal Engine tutorial. This tutorial was requested by one of the members of our community, so I hope many people will benefit from this. In this tutorial, we're going to learn how to create left and arrow buttons to navigate through a content like this. So let me show you. So we have this button left and right. So our first spell is called smoke, and I just put here text first so we can distinguish which one is first and which one is the last. So if I go on the right, we're going to scroll through content, and we have invisibility last. So when we come to the last spell, or the last of the content, we're going to go to the first. So if you are on the first, if you go back, we're going backwards. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, so now we are back in the main menu widget. So I have created here widget, right click, user interface and widget blueprint, and I name this main menu HUD. And I have another level specifically for this main menu. So when I play the game, I'm going to show the widget. So back in the designer, first what we're going to do is to get an overlay element. So click and drag onto the screen. So if you are asking yourself why we are not using canvas panel are not good for performance. I have a whole tutorial for that. Please check it out. Instead, we are going to use overlay. Okay, so let's rename this overlay main menu underscore overlay. So let's get a horizontal box. Click and drag onto the screen. So we don't see it because it's this tiny square here. So let's put a button inside. So you can click and drag the button inside the horizontal box. Now select the horizontal box and let's position it in the middle of the screen by going on the right side. So we have center align horizontally. And we're going to add padding here on the top, something like 50. And let's get a text and put inside of the button. So select the text, and here in the text content, we can simply put less than sign to be shown as an arrow. So go here on the bold, make it light. So it looks like an arrow. So compile and save. Now we have left arrow. Let's first rename this horizontal box. So we have spells navigation underscore box. And also this is going to be left. So let's rename this button previous spell underscore button. BTN for button. So naming is very important. I will show you later on why. Now let's put a text inside. So select the text and make it like this, so to be centered. And now we can select this button and Ctrl D to duplicate. And horizontal boxes are very useful. I will show you now why. If you click this arrow, it's going to change it to the next. If I click one more time, it's going to be like this. Additionally, you can press left on the keyboard. It's going to take it like this. Okay, so this button is previous spell, and this one, because it was duplicate, is previous spell 1. So this was the original one. Let's put it on the left, and let's put this one on the right. And let's rename this next spell underscore BTN. So select the text, and you can put greater than sign. So now we have left and right. To make more space between, you can either use spacer, but we're going to use padding instead. So click this text in the middle, open this padding. So padding left, put 50, and padding right, also 50. So let's rename this text to something else, for example, spells. Now if I play the game, we have these buttons. But if I click on the side, I'm losing the mouse cursor. Now let's fix that. Go back to the main menu HUD, go to the graph. So you can right click and type event construct. This is when the game starts, and when this user widget is shown, this is going to fire first. So you can right click and type get player controller, and from here drag a pin and type set show. So we need set show mouse cursor. We can connect this. We're going to check this to be true. And from here, drag another pin and type set input UI only. Connect this. Let's make a reroute node. From here, widget to focus, drag a pin and type self. And this is very important in mouse lock mode, so we can lock it always. This means when I play the game now, the mouse will not go outside these borders. So it's going to be locked within this window. And if I click on the side, I'm not losing the mouse cursor anymore. So I can press this freely. Okay, let's go back. Now next, let's go to the designer. Now we need something else to create here. Let's close this down for now. In the top left corner, you can type widget switcher. So this is how we are going to navigate through content. So click and drag over here. And now we have here widget switcher. Let's rename it. So we're gonna name it spells underscore switcher. And from here, get a text and drag and drop inside the switcher. Now select the switcher and make it in the middle. So every time when we are pressing these buttons, we're going to control this. So the first, we're going to name it smoke. This is very important, underscore index 00. Now this is going to be named smoke. Let's change the text to smoke. And also for clarity, you can just put a colons and type first spell. So we will know this is the first spell. So let's create a couple more. Select this and Ctrl D to duplicate and change this to something like grenade underscore index 01. So index 0 is going to be the first and this is going to be second. But in programming, number 1 is starting from 0. That's why it's like this. So this is first, this is second. Now let's change this text to grenade. So if you click on this first here, the smoke, you see we are changing it here. If you click the second, so this is why it's important, the naming. So this widget switcher contains these items, and this is going to be shown only one at a time. So for example, this text can be only shown and then only this. Now let's create one more. So Ctrl D to duplicate. And let's rename this something like earth underscore index 02. So select this text and here rename it earth. So do the same thing, Ctrl D, something like supersonic underscore index 03. So don't forget to change this to supersonic. So let's see if we have this working. This one is smoke, grenade, earth, and supersonic. And let's do one more. This is going to be laser underscore index 04. So change the text. Laser. So do it again here. Ctrl D to duplicate. And the last one, let's call it invisibility underscore index 0, 5. So let's rename this to invisibility. Let's put a colon and let's type last spell. Okay, so why we have named this underscore index? If you go to the widget switcher, if you go over here on the right side, it says switcher active widget index. So currently active is 0, which means the smoke, this is 0. So again, let's click to the switcher. If I press here 1, I'm activating this one, the grenade. And if I press here 2, I'm seeing earth. If I press 5, I'm going to see this invisibility, the last index. So let's type 5. We're going to the last one. Now, if you go 10, for example, and we don't have 10, it's going to revert back to the last one. So we are going to press this button over here, and we are going to navigate through index 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and back. Now don't forget, let's revert this to 0, so the current one. The default is going to be 0, the first. So compile and save. Let's go back to the graph. First we need to do is to create 3 variables. So let's create variable 1 of type integer. So we have to name this variable current spell. So when you compile, the default value is going to be 0. Now let's duplicate this variable. Let's name this first spell. So first spell is going to be also 0, the default value, because we're going to start from 0, which means the first spell. Let's duplicate another time. We're going to call this last spell. So it's important to know, if you have last spell 0, it's not going to work. This last spell needs to be like this, so 5, because the index is 5. We have integers of 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, don't forget that. If you want to have here, for example, 10, you have to change the last spell default value to 10. So compile and save. Now what we need to do is, when you press the next spell, which means it's this button, don't forget. Let's see how we can do it. So with the next spell button selected, on clicked. Let's put this down a bit. So we need to get the current spell, click and drag, and get. So drag a pin here and type equals, and get the last spell, get last spell. And hold down B on the keyboard and left click to call a branch. Connect this and let's explain what we have done here. So when you press this button on the right side, we are going to check if we are on the last spell, which means if you are on this one. Okay, so to the graph. So if this is true, we are going to do something, but first let's go with a false, because it's going to be easier for you to understand. So if you're not on the last spell, which means if you still have spells to go through, let's say when you click this, if the current spell is, let's say here, so if it's not the last spell, we have to drag and drop this current spell, set it, and get the current spell. And now we go get. So we have to increase that number. So click and drag and type plus. So we have to increment by 1. You have to set the current spell to +1. So again, I know it's a bit confusing, that's why I have to repeat a couple of times. Every time when you press this button, if this widget switcher it's not to the last spell, which means if you have some of them like this, then we're going to increase that number. So we're increasing the current spell by 1. So this is going to be 0, and then we are increasing by 1 all the way when you come to number 5, to index 5. So now we have to set this to be shown on the screen. So get the spells switcher, get the spells, and from here we can type set active widget. So we need this set active widget index. So with this we are setting, I'm going to select this switcher, we are setting this number here. So for example 1, 2, 3. That's how we are setting this. Back to the graph. So this integer goes like this, and now we are setting it. So compile and save, let's see if it works. Now I'm going to go like this. Now nothing happens. If you go right, and if you go left, nothing happens. Let's fix that. Back to the graph. Now when you come to the last spell, what we need to do is to go back to the first spell. So get the current spell, set, and get the first spell. So we are setting the first spell to be as current, which means we reached the last spell because of this. So when you reach the last spell, which is over here 5, then the current spell is going to be as a first. So you can simply get this and Control D to duplicate. And also this spell switcher. We can always make this as a custom event or a function, but for now this is going to be good. Now when I reach the last spell, I should go back to the first spell because of this. Now let's try it out. Now we have smoke as a first. Let's go to the spells. So this is the last. Now when I press again, we should go to the first. Perfect, it's working. So I can go like this. Now the previous spell button, which is the left arrow, unclicked. Now just as a small note, if you want to go through all of them infinitely, you can do that, but if you want to stop when the last spell is reached, you can simply detach this. So it's up to you. But it's a good idea to have this working in your game. Okay, so if you press the previous spell button, now get the current spell. So we have get, and get the first spell. Now we have the other way around. Now let's compare with equals. So if the current spell has reached the first one, so now we are going backwards. We have to decrement. So right click and type branch. Plug this in. As a reminder, when you press the left button, we're going to go back. So 5, 4, 3, 2. And if we haven't reached the first spell, so if we haven't reached the first spell, which means from here, from the false, click and drag the current spell. So now we're going to set and get the current spell, get, and now we're going to subtract. So we have minus 1. You can connect this like this. Okay, so we are pressing the left button and we are going -1. Get the spells switcher. Get the switcher. From here, set active widget index. You can set like this. Now, when you come to the first spell, which means it's index 0, we're going to start all the way from here. Now let's see how we can do that. So click and drag the current spell, set it, and now we are getting the last spell. So we have get. So we are setting the current spell to the last. So from the true, we have reached the last spell, and click and duplicate this. So I'm gonna need to plug this in like this, the target. Okay, compile and save. Now let's see if this is working. So now if I press left, I have to go to the last spell. You see, it goes all the way to the last. Now we're in the last spell. I should go to the first. It's going to go around like this. So I can scroll like this. It's all working perfectly fine. Okay, now let me show you the code one last time so you can copy it. So this is the previous button. You can make a screenshot. And this is the next button, the right arrow. Okay, so this is how you are doing UI navigation between content like this. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.